Different words describe different people. But in the eyes of the law, there's one that fits us all. Human right number 7. We're all equal before the law. What are human rights? Find out at youthforhumanrights.org.
Hello, I'm Mary Ann Dalton, and welcome to Active Aging, a program devoted to exploring issues of importance to older people and people living with disabilities. Each month, we provide information and resources to help you live a healthy, satisfying, and independent life. This month, we'll be speaking with local resident Martin Abadizian about how he's staying at home with the help of Somerville Cambridge Elder Services. But first, we'll go into the studio to speak with State Senator Pat Jelen. Okay, well, these are certainly challenging times for older people between, the high cost of health care, affordable housing. There are so many issues. In your mind, what are the most important issues that are facing older people right now?
Well, we just got a report about what it takes to live a secure life as a senior in Massachusetts, and particularly in Middlesex County. And a single person retired living in unsubsidized rental housing, they need $24,000 a year to survive. Wow. And the average Social Security payment is $12,000. So there's a little gap there.
That's shocking.
Yeah. So housing is really, for a lot of seniors, it's almost half their income. And then when you take how much health care is costing on top of Medicare, a lot of people don't have enough for food. So that's why a lot of people need to find subsidized housing.
So in general, economic security is really
economic
a huge,
security,
I
think, is the top, just like it is for everybody else.
That's interesting. And you've recently been appointed the chairperson of the Joint Committee on Elder Affairs, which is wonderful because you've been a huge proponent of services for older people, all sorts of services, and you're very knowledgeable about this area. How do you think the committee is going to address some of the issues that you think are important in the coming year?
Well, I think our main mandate is to fulfill the promise of the Equal Choice Bill we passed last year. And equal choice, as you know, is supposed to say that everyone who is eligible for Medicaid and eligible to go into a nursing home would actually have the choice of staying in the community and receiving home care, or being in less restrictive environments than a nursing home. So they would have a range of choices. And so making that really happen is going to be a major challenge for the Elder Affairs Committee.
And that's really a huge issue, because I don't think a lot of people do realize that for years people have kind of been forced into institutional settings because of this kind of inequality in the law. So
that Medicaid wouldn't pay for home care. And we have, on a state level, created programs that began to fill that gap and helped people stay at home. And you and I visited a family in West Somerville who were staying in their home and taking care of each other with assistance from Somerville Cambridge Elder Services. So that's a really important program, but everyone should have that choice, and it shouldn't be just people on Medicaid. And so part of the Equal Choice Bill, it says that when you are thinking about or about to go into a nursing home, when you're in a hospital about to being discharged into rehab, that you would receive counseling and assessment, what your needs were, what community options were available to you.
And that pre-admission counseling part is a really key piece of the legislation. And do you know how
that would be for everybody?
And for everyone,
should
depending
be
on
for everybody, whether or not they are currently eligible for Medicaid. Because what happens to so many people is they are discharged from a hospital into a rehab or nursing home, they spend down their assets, and then they are eligible for Medicaid. Whereas if they had gotten counseling before, they might have been at home, and their services would have been much less expensive, and they would have been in their community.
Yeah, that's interesting. People don't realize, once you leave your home setting, it's a lot more difficult to get back into the community. Now, are there challenges that you're facing in implementing this, the pre-admission counseling portion of the equal choice legislation?
Well, we're disappointed that the administration is proposing a very complex way of implementing the pre-screening, which would mean different people with different payment options would receive different kinds of counseling. It would be much more complex. I think the system is so complex now that no one can understand it. To start with, it's my belief that you need a PhD to get old because you have to understand Medicare Part D. You have to understand a range of options for long-term care. And now you're going to have to
decipher the facts that people who are supposed to be doing it are not really going to be able to do.
Right. Yeah. So we don't understand why the administration is proposing this extremely complex addition. So we're going to try to change that.
So what can the Elder Affairs Committee
do? So that's one thing.
Okay.
Well, we had a hearing last week with the secretary, and we asked questions about it, and then there'll be a comment period and comment day in April, the end of April, and we'll express our opinions. We're writing a letter to her tomorrow, expressing our concerns. We don't think that their plan will save money, so we think that we need to do it right. But the other challenge, of course, is to make sure that the range of options is available, because you can have all the counseling you want, but if there's not enough people doing home care, if there's not enough money in the home care system, if residential facilities like the Somerville home close because they haven't gotten enough payment, or if the VNA can't accept people for group adult foster care because they haven't gotten any rate adjustments. If the range of services doesn't exist, then people will keep going to nursing homes. So we need to.
And ironically, in the end, it will end up costing the state so much more if there's that investment in the community side first. Are there other issues, maybe not related to equal choice or community services, that the Elder Affairs Committee wants to tackle, or does it have its plate full with that?
That I think is going to be our focus. But I would just like to tell people about one program that a lot of people don't know about. If you own your own home, that you can defer your property taxes. If you're over 60 and you meet certain income guidelines and your house has a maximum value. And we're going to try to raise those so they'll be like the circuit breaker, so they'll have the same limits.
Oh, interesting.
But I think a lot of seniors don't know that that they can keep their houses by deferring their property taxes until their house is sold or they die. So I think that will be of value to people who want to keep their own home.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because certainly in this area where the property values are so high and the property taxes are consequently high, also older people are really squeezed by that. So that sounds like it would be quite helpful.
I think so. Yeah. And so that's one of the things we're going to work on. I just testified, I came here from testifying about a bill which would allow seniors or anybody to stop harassing phone calls from creditors. A lot of seniors get into significant credit card debt, and they may live alone, and they find they're getting harassing calls from credit agencies several times a day. I have a constituent whose husband was in the hospital dying, and she would get calls from the credit card several times a day.
Horrible.
And she was afraid not to answer the phone because her husband was dying. And yet, they wouldn't stop, and they didn't stop when he died. If it had been a collection agency, she could have stopped it under federal law. So we want to make the same law apply to credit companies, so that if you issue them a cease and desist letter, they could still write to you and threaten you. They couldn't call you up.
Call you in the middle of the night, threatening you. Wow, that's wonderful. That sounds like a really important piece of legislation.
But simple thing that would make a lot of people's lives better. This woman is going into bankruptcy just to stop the phone calls.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, This is going to be a challenging year. It's the budget's going to be released very soon, and there's a lot of important things, not just for older people. Cities and towns are counting on more support. We have a whole new universal health care proposal that's supposed to be launched, and I know we're facing a huge budget crisis. What's the talk about how we're going to be able to increase the revenues to make this budget happen?
Well, we do face a significant lack of revenue. We cut taxes 45 times in the 90s when we had a lot of money. We spent some of it. We increased local aid, for example, and we spent a lot more money on health care. But the biggest change in our spending was that we gave a lot of tax breaks. We gave $4.5 billion. We cut taxes by $4.5 billion. We've restored $1 billion of that, but we still have a lower base revenue than we did in the early 90s. So, right this year, we have not enough to continue the services that we had last year. We are short over $1 billion to just continue what we did last year.
And so there are several proposals
to
fill those gaps.
There are going to be a lot of cuts because the Speaker has said we're not going to consider the governor's package of tax break, of closing corporate tax loopholes. So there will be a lot of cuts. I hope that people will say that they don't think some of those cuts are acceptable, because I don't think they are. I think our public higher education is stretched. It's impossible for working class people to go to college and not go in deep into debt. Our infrastructure is in serious trouble. They are estimating the cost of repairing our transportation system is almost $20 billion over the next 20 years.
It's crazy.
Our parks and are in terrible shape, and the dams in some cases are about to give way. We have serious needs in this state, and I hope people will talk about whether it's worth continuing to allow corporations to shift their income out of state and then not pay taxes on it.
It's always wonderful speaking with State Senator Pat Jelen. After our break, we'll go over to Powderhouse Terrace to speak with Martin Avedisian.
Are you looking for a meaningful way to give back to the Somerville community? Do you want to think globally and act locally? Do you crave great company, tasty food, and more than a few good laughs? If the answer is yes, consider joining the Somerville Rotary Club.
Rotary is a worldwide organization of business and professional leaders that provides humanitarian service, encourages high ethical standards in all vocations, and helps build goodwill and peace in the world. Over 1 million Rotarians in more than 200 countries respond to international needs through the Rotary International Foundation. Somerville Rotary responds to our neighborhood's needs through grants and volunteer service projects.
Last year, Somerville Rotary raised and distributed thousands of dollars to organizations serving our city.
Club members took part in projects serving youth, the homeless, community education, and the environment.
If you would like to give back to the community, the Somerville Rotary would like to hear from you.
Thank you so much for joining us on our program today, Mr. Avedisian. I know you've had such an interesting life, and you're a lifelong Somerville resident. How long have you lived in Somerville?
86 years old. Well, I'm cheating for 1 week.
Oh, yeah.
Next week is my
Next
birthday.
week. Well, happy birthday.
Thank
and
you.
where in Somerville were you born?
Somerville Avenue,
Oh, wow. So
right near Union Square.
Oh, wow. So, and you've lived in this beautiful house for how long?
No, 1957.
Oh, wow.
I lived on Somerville Avenue until I was about 7, 8 years old. Then we moved to Marshall Street, right across from the Northeastern Junior High that's not existing anymore. And then we moved here in 57.
Wow, so you are intimately familiar with this community and its history.
This is the first home built in this whole area. The Tufts owned all this property. we got pictures of the old grounds here. It was a farmland. And as you know, that Powder House Monument has a great history.
Yes.
6 months before the Revolutionary War, that's where history was made. That's where the British marched from the Boston Harbor. I saw that reenacted. And they confiscated the powder that was stored in there. Then they marched from there to Cambridge Common, confiscated the cannons. They knew that the Patriots were going to have ammunition to give them trouble at the Boston Harbor. So they tried to beat them to it, and that's when all this Paul Revere and his comrade rode up to Lexington and conquered, and history was made.
Right here, yeah, and you have such a, an interesting history yourself. Your family's from Armenia.
That's correct, and I was sorry to say this, but my whole family, I never saw my aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews. They were all slaughtered. I say that emphatically because the American public doesn't even want to listen about the genocide. The first genocide in the 20th century, all you hear about is the Turkish genocide. I mean the Jewish genocide. But the Turks were barbarians. And because we were the first nation to accept Christianity, and the Turks were Muslims, they tried to force us to change our religion, which we died for.
And it was a horrible, horrible situation. And how were your parents able to escape the slaughter?
That was something that I still shiver when I think of it. We had a cousin that lived in that village. My mother was walking around in the village when the kids were throwing stones, and one of the stones hit her eye. It blinded him. And my cousin was a merchant that went all over the world with the dried fruits and things, figs, raisins, nuts, all that. And he knew about the Mass General eye and ear. And he put up the money. He figured they might still save her eye. And she came over here with her future husband, my father. And but they couldn't do anything for her. It was too late. But if he hadn't put up that money, and they hadn't left just before the genocide, before World War II, none of my family would be here. I wouldn't be talking to you, and you people wouldn't be doing this. So
wow, what an amazing story. Now, and so you've lived here all your life, and what kind of work did you do?
I worked for the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad. I was a good typist. That has a story in itself, too. My the third oldest person in my family. We were 7. I'm the only one left, by the way. And I couldn't even get a job as a dishwasher in the Depression. And I just graduated from high school, and I took a commercial course. And I knew a little about typing, so she said the best thing for you to do, because as a male, you could get a job as a typist, a male, in places where women are not hired. So I went in with a bunch of women and took that course, and I did become a pretty good typist. And I got a job on the railroad freight yards with rats and things running around. No woman would ever work in it, cold. And I was a dispatcher. And I went from one of the places, it was called Lift Schultz Fast Freight. I went from there, the railroad knew about me and my typing, and asked if I worked for them. So I worked as a clerk for 20 years. And that's the story. I used to help my brother, who was the art director at the RKO Boston, where they had the big stage shows. And I used to go after work to help him out. So I learned the trade, and when he died of cancer, I took over. But I used to, when I was about 13 years old, 11, 12, 13 years old, I met all the great stars. Eddie Cantor, the Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello,
wow.
Andrews Sisters.
And so you took over
name it.
his business,
I
and
got pictures of them, autographs, all the big bands, Kate Kaiser, the Dorseys, the two
oh wow,
Dorsey
how
brothers,
exciting!
and the one that went into the service and died. What the heck was his name? Anyway, all the big bands, I've got their real good pictures and their autographs.
We'll have to come back for another show and
That
photograph
would be
some of your
all
some of
these
your
other
autograph
things
photographs.
I've got that people could see. I've salvaged, I've cherished them, I should say.
So you continued on with his business after he
I
died?
did for a long time. And we moved over from there, RTO Keat, Boston, to the Keat Memorial. And my shop was upstairs where his was when he passed away. And I did that for a long time.
And when did you?
And I had customers all the way to Times Square in New York. So I'm pretty proud. Not being an artist, I still was able to.
So you were able to do all the promotional art for
for years. But we went into other fields, putting big pylon signs up, illuminated signs. We had a big shop, and then I got hit by a car in 1972, and my life was destroyed. During that time, too, I was pretty prominent in sports. I played semi-pro basketball. I refereed. I was asked to referee in the NBA. You know what the NBA is.
Oh, I certainly do.
I've been in Red Auerbach's office a number of times. And Mr. Kennedy, the commissioner, not the President Kennedy, asked, because I was big and strong, a little strong, that if I would consider refereeing in the NBA. So I've had, and then from there, when I got hit in the auto accident, I went into volleyball, and I'm a national referee, and I refereed the Olympics team, when they were playing in different tournaments in this country. So I can continue and continue.
Yeah, well, you've had such an interesting. Well,
I'm
going to. Well, we want to. Hear you're such an interesting and vital person, and I know that you've had a number of physical challenges, starting with the car accident, and then other, age-related challenges. Can you talk a little bit about some of your physical and health challenges?
Well, the big one, I had the auto accident in '72, as I said. I was stopped at a red light. 18-year-old kid just got his beginner's license, and he had borrowed his uncle's plates to go get a second-hand car so he could put on the plates on the car. He took the car out, didn't have any brakes. I was stopped in Chelsea, pick up some special electricity for my men who had lifted a sign, the pylon sign, and on Revere Beach driveway. And I stopped at a red light, and he plowed into me, and I fractured the first three vertebrae, which is the worst part of your neck. And I've suffered. I spent months in the Spalding rehab.
Sure.
And it's affected me to the point now that it's affecting my spine. It's bending down, and it's pressing against my lungs. So now I have my heart. I have fluid in my lungs, and I've got 36 operations on my shin bone. I got that when I was refereeing volleyball at the Cedardale Health Club. I don't know if you heard that, but they're in Haverhill. It's a city within the city. And they asked me to prepare a volleyball program for them, a league. So I went over, and they built a referee stand out of plywood and big 2x4s and so forth. And they didn't do it properly. They just put one nail in each of these steps, and it takes 3 steps to go up and stand on the platform. While I was going to the second one, I was pretty heavy, as you can see. The step left, they didn't tie it in the back of the post, and it fell on top of me and knocked me out.
No.
I was bleeding all over. One of the 2x4s in my shin bone, and it didn't open. The skin didn't open, and I was sent to the emergency room, and they unfortunately sent me to my orthopedic surgeon who did the fusion in my neck. And I guess he saw a few dollars just bandaging the thing. It was the wrong person to send to. And so by the time they got me to a plastic surgeon, it was too late. And since then I've had 36 skin grafts, muscle flaps, everything you consider. And I'm getting worse and worse, and now my circulation is gone. And they can't do too much with a leg. They want to amputate.
So now you're clearly you're living at home independently, but there's a number of things that you can't do for yourself anymore. What things are difficult for you to do?
More and more I can't walk. The circulation's going. I need plenty of assistance, and I can't bathe myself. I can just I can't take showers because of this leg, and so the elderly services. Derek Montello, my agent, tremendous person. They've set up different services. One of them Meals on Wheels, and the other one is a homemaker and personal health care. The personal health care comes in, and every day except Saturday and Sunday, they give me sponge baths. I can't reach my feet, and I can't do my back and so forth. So that's been a very fortunate thing. And it leads up to the fact that one of the things I'm determined is to stay home as long as I can. I know eventually I'm not going to be able to. But the wonderful thing is this elderly services, supplying the services and allowing me to stay at home. Because I don't think I'd ever survive much longer if I had to go to an assisted living place.
Yeah, and you probably couldn't stay here without those services.
No way. They're supplying things like taxis to get to my appointments, which are many now. And the homemaker cleans up the thing. Meals on Wheels. It's a lot better than you get in the hospitals, believe me.
Have you had any home adaptation services, like grab bars in the bathroom? Did they work on that for you?
All tremendous. They even put one just recently out at the front door, as you probably saw.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
That's so I can at least stand up from the wheelchair to step down and hold on to that. And so they try to help in every way possible.
And do you have escorts that ever help you get to the doctor's appointments, or are you still able to?
They said that I could get them if I want to. After surgeries and after surgeries, they send me to a rehab hospital because I can't walk, and it's safer for me to be in one of those places for a few weeks. But no, the elderly services is a blessing because I've had the experiences of nursing homes and assisted living places. I don't want to say anything negative because people might be listening that are facing going there in the immediate future. It's nice when you have to, but if you can stay out of it as long as you can, do that.
Martin's just one of many interesting older people living in Somerville and Cambridge. Join us next month on Active Aging, where we'll profile more stories like Martin's and provide more resource information so you can live an independent and healthy life at home.